Hello, everyone. It's about 10 o'clock now, so we're going to get started soon. We've got some more and more people joining us, and thank you all for tuning in. It's been a great week so far for the Earth Optimism Summit, and we've got a lot of activity happening on Twitter in particular, so you can check that out as well if you want to join that conversation and hashtag Earth Optimism. Okay, I think we'll get started. So again, I want to welcome everybody to the Smithsonian Earth Optimism Summit. We're really delighted that we were able to do this. You know, like everywhere else, we had a big event planned in person and they had to get closed down because of the COVID emergency, but we were able to pivot to a virtual summit and be able to continue with the deep dive, which is fantastic. My name is Brian Coyle. I'm one of the organizers of the summit, and I'm excited to be moderating this deep dive. Case studies from Smithsonian affiliates, youth-led environmental action in Lowell, Massachusetts, and Miami, Florida. So this week, we're celebrating the 50th anniversary of the first Earth Day in 1970. We're taking stock of where we've been, where we're going, and how we're going to get there. So these are both scary times, but they're also exciting times. We have all the technology, the ideas, and the successful examples that we need to go beyond just putting a stop to environmental destruction and to create a more just society that really places a premium on environmental values. And in many ways, it's the same vision activists have been calling for since 1970, but the urgency now is acute. Nothing gives me more hope, and I think this is true of many of us, if not most of us, than that we can achieve this transformation, than the heightened awareness and the strong activism of the current generation of young people. Young people are, we've always thought, the engine that drives Earth Optimism, and that's very true. That comes across all week for Earth Optimism Summit. So this morning we're going to hear from teens and from mentors about programs at Lowell Historical Park in Lowell, Massachusetts, and the Phillip and Patricia Frost Museum of Science in Miami, Florida. They're providing crucial opportunities for young people to develop the skills and knowledge to make positive change for the environment and their communities. But before we get started, I want to first thank Jen Brundage and Nicole Briner for organizing this summit, and they're going to be in the background making sure that everything's running smoothly and monitoring the chat and sending us questions and answers, so thank you both. I also want audience members to know that we'll be recording, but we'll have everybody muted except for the speakers. But we very much want you to send in information about yourself, where you're coming from, and send us questions and answers. So you're going to see there's a chat option at the bottom of your screen, and you can always just chat in there if you want to make comments, have conversation with other audience members. And then we're also going to be soliciting questions. So there's also a separate question and answer box. And so if you have questions, if you want to direct it to someone in particular, please put their name there. You know, this is the message for Michelle, or this is the message for Chris, or question rather, or you can just pose one generally to the whole panel. And right now we're just going to open up a poll. We also may have a couple polls popping up. You'll see one in the center of your screen about audience demographics. So we're interested to know who's tuning in and who you are. So please go ahead and just click on one of those options and submit that, and then we'll be able to show you the answer to that once we get all those answers in. So why don't we do introductions? We'll meet our participants and hear about their programs. Michele, we're going to start with Lowell. Michele Pasillo and Katie Durkin are joining us from the Lowell National Historical Park. Why don't you please tell us about yourselves, your organization, and how youth engagement in conservation and climate action fits your organizational mission. Katie, would you lead us off?
Sure thing. My name is Katie Durkin. I'm actually an employee at the Lowell Parks and Conservation Trust. We're a separate nonprofit that partners with organizations like the Lowell National Historical Park. We were founded in 1990 by Lowell residents that wanted to protect the natural resources that Lowell was built upon. We do this through urban forestry, environmental education, connecting trails, and just making the community accessible to open spaces. Yeah, and I've been here since last January, and I'm really excited to be on this deep dive today. I work in the after school program with high school students as well as second graders, but they're a really passionate group of individuals, and I can't wait for you to hear from some of them today.
Hi, I'm Michele Cazale. I'm education specialist at Lowell National Historical Park. And just a little bit of background about the park. The park was established in 1978, and the site is comprised of a variety of different sites around the city of Lowell that are all related to textile manufacturing that contributed in the city during the Industrial Revolution. I want to emphasize that Lowell National Historical Park is a really unique park model in the national park system, in that we're an urban park, and we really foster partnerships. So our partnership with Lowell Parks and Conservation Trust has really helped us to continue that strong relationship with the community, and we're reaching out to a next generation of park stewards and environmental advocacy folks. And through these partnerships that the park fosters and grows, we're hoping to spark more of a environmental awareness within our community.
That's great. And I think it's great to, a lot of people, I suppose, will maybe think of national parks mainly as nature parks exclusively, but they have such a, great relationship a lot of times with the community. And that's so important now, I suppose, as populations are increasing, right? That we're also focused on green spaces and our interaction with the communities. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the programs that you're working on with young people right now? That'd be for Michele or.
Sure. So, so one of the programs, myself and Kate, and we're also working with Mass Audubon. So it's a tiered partnership, and through the Lowell Parks and Conservation Trust's connection with and their programming that's offered through the Trees program, and Katie will talk a little bit more about that. We are reaching a group of high school youth, and also looking to reach out to youth that have been an alumni of this after-school high school program. And we're looking to start up a environmental youth task force in the coming month, where they'll be employing an environmental action project.
Fantastic. And I see we have one of the participants, one of the students joining us today. She's been involved in the Compass and the Trees program since grade school, and her name is Amina Bengura. Amina, would you tell us about your involvement in these programs and in these environmental programs? And I think you were also involved in kind of community-focused programs and the kinds of projects that you've done.
Good morning. My name is Amina Bengura, and I'm a senior at Lowell High School. And I am involved in the Trees and also previously in the Compass program. And Trees stands for Teams Representing Environmental Excellency in Stewardship. And what we do, we focus on problems in our community revolving around the environment, and we try to find small actions that then evolve to bigger ones, into helping our community find awareness and helping us become leaders in our community and the environment. And we also mentor and help other kids. Like in the Compass program, I do a lot of mentoring for the upcoming freshmen, because previously I was one, and the Trees and the previous programs did the same for me. So we do a lot of leadership and environmental stewardship.
Great, so that must be a lot of fun to go from being one of the students who's getting mentored to then becoming a mentor. And so you get to do both sides and both roles.
Yeah.
All right, so next we're gonna shift south a bit to Miami, Florida, to the Phillip and Patricia Frost Museum. And we have 2 staff and 2 students joining us today. Sofany, Montoya, and Mauricia, Vasquez. I'd love to hear about your work at the Frost Museum and in Southern Florida, and how youth engagement with environmental issues fits your organizational mission. Sofany, do you want to start us off?
Sure. Good morning. My name is Sofany Montoya, and I am the program coordinator for the Impact program at the Frost Museum of Science. I've been with the Impact program for about 2 or 3 years now, and we really have a great platform with which to engage and communicate science with our students during our 6-week marine science component of Impact. Through this program, we are able to take students out into the field where they can really see firsthand the effects of climate change in their city and their communities. And they also have the opportunity to meet with and collaborate with researchers and professionals that study and address different environmental and conservation issues across South Florida. So with that exposure and that knowledge, our students are able to design and implement projects in South Florida and Miami that look at our local biodiversity, our water quality, effects of sea level rise, just a few that they've worked on in the past. And we also work to build connections for our participants by bringing in mentors from various disciplines that support the different paths that our students pursue in STEM and beyond. So I think we've been really successful in raising awareness in our youth about these important issues. And they really never cease to impress us with all the innovative ways that they come up with to tackle these issues and educate the public. We're really proud of all the things that they've accomplished.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I mean, I think it's great, not only the opportunities to work on projects, but the exposure that they get to so many experts and then role models. And just the region, I mean, Southern Florida is one of those places we think of as kind of a front line for climate change. So it's important and really fascinating. It sounds like there's a lot of rich opportunities there. Mauricia, would you tell us a bit more about the program and Frost Museum, maybe the history of how the program got started?
Yes, hi, my name is Mauricia Vasquez. I am the project director of the Impact program. So Impact stands for Integrated Marine Program and College Training, and has been at Frost Science for over 20 years with a very successful track record of inspiring the next generation of STEM professionals. So the program is designed to strengthen the math and science skills of low-income first-generation high school students through academic advising, hands-on learning experiences, with the ultimate goal of encouraging students to pursue a STEM career. And so they join us in the summer right after their 8th grade year and are with us until they graduate high school. So we really do have the opportunity to nurture those necessary skills for college and career over their 4 years of high school. So much of the work that we do does cater to the interests of the participants. So it serves as a way to expose the students to various fields in science that they can potentially pursue. And so over the last couple of years, because it caters to the students' interests, over the last couple of years, we've seen different shifts in the neighborhoods that we serve and shifts in the local marine biodiversity. And so our students that you'll hear from today have shifted their attention in that direction to better understand these issues and how they affect us here in Miami.
Yeah, that's great that they're actually working on issues that have direct relevance to how they live and where they're living, and that just brings probably out more of their passion for that work. So we have, as I mentioned, we have two of the students joining us from Frost Museum today. We're going to hear from Chris Torres and Nahemi Pluvios. Chris, why don't you start us off by telling us about how you got involved in the program and your experience, some of the projects that you've been involved with?
Hello, my name is Christopher Torres, and I'm a 12th grader at Miami Jackson Senior High School. the activities I've done in the program varies from like beach cleanups, but most importantly, I worked as a production assistant at the Frost Museum, where I would conduct research and interviews in order to film and edit videos to be put on display for the public.
That's great. So that's a nice range of activities. So you're out in the field, and then you're also helping with communications and education. Those are all great skills to learn as an activist and change maker. And Naomi, why don't you? I'm looking for you on the screen here. Are you with us?
Yes.
Okay, great. So Naomi's going to tell us about her experiences and the projects that she's been involved with.
Hello, my name is Naomi. I'm a senior at School for Advanced Studies, and I've been with the program for 4 years. Projects that I've worked on varies from like sea turtles or from, like shadowing graduate students at universities. Most importantly, I worked with as a project assistant while filming videos about professionals and working in their field with coral reef restoration. And yeah.
Sounds good. Well, thank you all for those introductions. And I think we'll now turn it to a bit of a question and answer. I'm going to ask a question or more for each of the panelists, and then we're going to open it up to the audience. So like I said, please go ahead and start populating any questions that you have into the box at the bottom of your screen. We'd love to hear from you as we proceed with this discussion. So why don't we start with students? Chris, if you're ready, I'll pose the first question to you. I watched a movie that you made. It's called Climate 301. It's about climate gentrification. So, that's to me a really fascinating and I think very important issue, but it's also something that I just hadn't even really been aware of until relatively recently. And it's surprising because it seems like a big deal. It is. Can you tell us what climate gentrification is and why people are concerned about it, why they should be?
Yeah, I can. So climate gentrification is basically what happens when home values increase due to people trying to move away from the coast. They're moving into like previously undesirable low-income neighborhoods that are in higher elevation in order to escape rising tides and floods, especially during king tide, which are tides that are usually higher than regular, which happens twice a year. That's all I can say.
And are you seeing in your area, are you seeing the tides increasing in frequency and depth?
Yeah, every time it rains, the streets get flooded and the beaches are overrun. Yeah.
So those communities where the gentrification is becoming an issue, what are they doing about that? Is this a kind of a new thing that they're really focused on, or is there an effort to kind of resist that gentrification?
Yeah, there's an effort a little bit. See, the issue is that since people are trying to move in, they're also building high-end apartments that people can't afford to live in. So not only are they being forced to move out to make space for those apartments, if they aren't kicked out initially, they end up being forced to leave because they can't pay. And what's bad about that is most people aren't aware of why all of a sudden there's a flood of new people coming in. So they're being pushed into neighborhoods that are in lower elevation. Thus, they're being pushed into, they're going to be flooded basically.
Mm-hmm. So, your work really highlights an important issue. I think that is it's so great because you're sharing this with people. A lot of us think about just the environmental impacts, but it's having serious impacts already on people, depending on background. It has a more serious, more intense impacts on low-income people potentially. And so having that conversation, being able to share that in the way that you did with video sounds really important. And another thing on the video that you had mentioned was about thermal expansion of water. So I was wondering if you could kind of talk a little bit about that one of the issues with climate change and our the warming climate is not just increase in the elevation of water because of ice melt, but also thermal expansion. So could you help us understand that?
Is it possible to ask that question a little bit later? I can.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we can get that. So Naomi, why don't we move on to you? I know that you were working on coral reefs, I believe, and those are, indisputably the impacts on coral reefs are caused by carbon pollution as well as other pollutants, and they're probably being more impacted more intensely than any other thing you can think about on the planet right now as a result of climate change. Can you tell us why reefs are important? Why you think we should value them, and what can be done to help?
Okay, so before I get into why it's important, I should get into like why they should be saved. So yeah, so basically there's an excess amount of carbon dioxide in our atmosphere due to the increased excess of fossil fuels that we're producing with our, for example, cars. So basically this excess carbon dioxide creates a greenhouse effect for our Earth. And because the Earth is getting warmer and hotter because of this, this causes the ocean temperatures to rise. And when these ocean temperatures rise, this causes the algae that's on the coral to expel. So the algae on the coral, it serves as a nutrition base and as for food for the algae. So when they expel it, they're depleting their nutrition and their food supply. So because of this, this causes the coral to be bleached and eventually die off. So why is it important? It's because one, this cuts off the habitats for fish at the bottom of the food chain, because the fish at the bottom of the food chain use the coral as a habitat and as a way to hide themselves from predators. And if they do not have these corals for their habitat, the predators will have easy access to them, causing the predators to overeat the fish because of the easy access. Eventually, this caused the food supply of the fish in the ocean to decline, because eventually the predators will overeat the fish, and in the long run, they won't have as much of the food supply to eat as regularly. So because of the decline of fish in the ocean, this will decrease the economic opportunities in the waters. So this affects us economically, and it also another way that it affects us is with tourism. Millions of people travel each year to coastal cities to visit these coral reefs, and if these corals aren't lively and are not functioning as well, then those people will travel to these coastal cities for vacation, leaving those coastal cities to have a decline in their economy of marine life and coral reefs.
And then, and what about, protection from storms? I've heard that coral reefs are important in that way too, that they can be kind of a barrier or provide some sort of protection. And in Florida, we know, storms are a huge issue and an increasing issue. Can you tell us a little about that?
Okay, so coral serves as a way to lessen the impact of hurricanes, because the corals absorbs the force of the water, and it also decreases the impact of the storm surges that goes along with hurricanes. So if we don't have any corals, then the severity of hurricanes will be much stronger and we'll have worse storms.
So this is, this is really great. I mean, it's an important issue, and it also just shows how complex, climate change impacts are. So you talk about ecology and biodiversity being affected, and those trophic levels within the reef system, as well as its impacts on communities and economy and tourism and protection from storms. So, this is a great experience, sounds like, that you've had in understanding these kind of things. So what are some of the solutions that you've become aware of about what people are doing to try to help coral reefs and protect them and prevent further destruction or bleaching?
So professionals, they're going out into the wild, and before the corals, die, they get pieces of the coral and bring it back to the lab. So at the lab, they make it more heat resistant or more resistant to the effects of climate change by growing them in warmer temperatures, so that they'll have a little resilience. while also doing a thing called microfragmentation, which is essentially like letting the coral grow and then breaking it up into little pieces, and like putting them in the same take triggers a natural heating effect where the corals grow even faster due to that. So microfragmentation and making them more resilient to climate change by growing them in warmer temperature waters will help grow corals at a faster rate so that we can put them back out in the water and restore our coral reefs.
Well, it's great to know that there's all these solutions that are being worked on, and hopefully these are going to be, effective. I know that Florida is probably one of the most important laboratories for coral reef restoration because of the amount of science and capacity down there. And so, Sophie and Mauricia, can you tell us a little bit about, how you and your colleagues help with the production and education around the Climate 301 film? That sounds like probably it's something that requires, a lot of expertise.
So because we work at the Science Museum, we're very lucky in the sense that we are able to collaborate with a lot of different professionals in the field. So we were connected with a filmmaker from PBS and Discovery Channel, Veronique Koch, who mentored the students throughout the entire process. She brought in a lot of her colleagues and really taught them about not just filmmaking, but how telling the story in a compelling way brings about a call to action. So Chris can talk a little bit about how they designed their story, because it is in a very unique way. It's not a throwing science at you kind of story. And so they were really able to work with a lot of these experts in the field to make that happen.
Chris, do you want to talk about that a bit? How you did film it? How it's different than just a straight up science film, but what was your approach?
Yeah, when we started making the film, we wanted to really focus on the fact that other documentaries, when they talk about the city of Miami, they're not from here, so they don't really have that connection that we do. So if you watch the film, we kind of pause and we stop talking about climate gentrification and all that, and we really focus on our lives. So, for example, one of the students that helped film was actually someone who was being asked to move away from their house to make space for some high-end apartments. So we really just wanted to make the film feel a little bit more human and really show that this really is a problem, that it's affecting real people.
That's great. Yeah, that's the way to be most effective with communication, really, to make it relatable and resonate with your audience. And so, Mauricia, with the programs that you have, with the Upward Bound program and Impact, what happens when the students complete that? Is that the end after their senior year and then they go on to college, or do you maintain a relationship with them afterwards?
Yeah, so one of the biggest aspects of our program is not just communicating science and something that we're very passionate about, but also creating a community or a sense of community. And we like to call it a family, because many of our students do come from low-income, first-generation backgrounds, where in their schools there is a gap in the way that they communicate science and the way that they support their students post-secondary. And a lot of the families are working very hard to maintain a roof over their heads. So we like to fill in that role of support. So we do, once they graduate high school, we do keep track of them, and we do try to ensure that not only are they enrolling in college, pursuing hopefully a STEM career, but also graduating on time and have all of the resources and information that they need to do that successfully.
That's great. That's great to hear. And I'm sure you have lots of stories of success about the students who've come through and benefit from that long-term commitment. Amina, you're up next. So I want to ask you, it sounds like you've had a lot of rich experience and you've been in several different programs. So it's kind of like a staircase, and you've had the advantage of doing that. I was wondering if you could tell us more specifically, though, about working with local communities. Why is that work important? And in your mind, how does that relate to kind of climate and environmental issues?
Okay. I think it's very important to work within your community because you get to build connections with the people in your community instead of like going into another community and helping. I believe that like people of their community should help within their community to have the connection with other people. And as time goes on, you end up like having each other's backs and supporting each other and everything you do. And what we do in trees, in our community, we do food pantries. Every month we go to the food pantry and we help the people over there. And then after that, we sometimes go to the WIC office and we do activities with the kids there. It depends on the season. Sometimes we'll carve pumpkins with them. Then we'll save the pumpkins to use as pumpkin seeds. And we help also to like spread information about the environment in our community by making signs. And we usually, one activity that we do, we measure trees in our at our school at Lowell High, and we measure the diameter of the tree to see how much carbon and water they're able to sequester. And that's what we'll put up signs to tell people like, oh, this is what these trees do for us, so people can know and also spread information to other people.
That's really interesting. I have not seen that in a local community myself, but I have an organization in my own community. That's an idea that I would like to see implemented, so people understand, carbon sequestration and reforestation, why that's so important. Thank you. So, Katie, can you tell us more about that program and working with communities in that way and that environmental education aspect? It sounds like the work that you're doing in Lowell is really, transformative, and bringing all these organizations together and helping people to understand these issues as a community. Yeah,
so the trees program specifically is really unique because it was started by students. So Amina was part of both the Compass and the Trees program. The Compass program is for incoming freshmen. It starts the summer of their 8th grade year, and it continues throughout their freshman year of high school. And the Compass program focuses on stewardship projects, engaging in STEM-based activities, and like Amina said, doing work within your community. After the students, back in 2014, aged out of the Compass program, they were still looking for more. They wanted to continue this stewardship and build upon it. So they developed TREES, which stands for Teens Representing Environmental Excellency and Stewardship. So what they're doing, like Amina said, they're measuring trees. We do samples along the Concord River, which is just outside their Lowell High School. It's nearby, and they test for macroinvertebrates. The macroinvertebrates within the river can give us a good idea of the health of the river, which reflects back on the health of our community and the environment in our community. This program is in partnership with Mass Audubon Drumlin Farm. And that's a really unique partnership because they're able to strengthen these projects even further by bringing in animal ambassadors that are native to Massachusetts and that they can even find in the Lowell area. So, yeah.
Yeah, and it's so important for young people, I think, to also see that networking and collaboration among different organizations on different levels and how valuable that is in having impact. that's really empowering. And then also the interconnectedness, like you said, between the health of the ecosystem, the health of the environment, and the health of the community, and those things are really, you know, one and the same. And so that's a great way to convey that kind of message. Michele, can you tell us more about the park's involvement and just as a model, you know, Lowell for other locations around the country too?
Sure. Can you repeat the beginning of your question there?
Yeah, just more about how the park gets involved and supports these activities, and then and this new program that is emerging, and how does this serve as kind of a model for other locations around the country too?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So, you know, as I mentioned in my introduction, the park has really leveraged a lot of community partnerships, and it's really an integral way of how the park does its operations and really connects with the community in Lowell. So we're looking to build a new program. It's called the Environmental Youth Task Force. And through this opportunity, I think from Kate's work with Mass Audubon, we realized that the trees participants were oftentimes, you know, they're moving on from high school and they're looking for that next step. And we thought that this was a great opportunity to continue that momentum. So this will be the first iteration of it. I think we have a really good, strong partnership in place amongst Mass Audubon, Lowell Parks and Conservation Trust, and the Lowell National Historical Park. We are looking to employ an environmental action project in the community, and it's really going to be driven by what the youth are interested in advocating for in the community. So, you know, maybe it's planting trees or doing pollinator gardens or doing something regarding composting. I think this will really serve as an interesting opportunity for, you know, the three organizations involved to take a look at how we can provide, you know, we can leverage all of our connections, whether that's with other professionals in the field. You know, I know Mass Audubon has a team of naturalist teachers. Lowell Parks and Conservation Trust has really tapped into the youth in the community in Lowell. And I think through the park, we can also leverage connecting to other professionals out in the field, whether that's wildlife biologists or biological science technicians. So I think it'll be a unique and really special opportunity for these young people, but then also for the organizations involved. And we hope that we're going to be able to, you know, not only focus on this environmental advocacy part and engaging the next generation, but also developing like their soft skills, whether that's in, you know, public speaking. Maybe we'll be attending events depending on how the world pans out, right? But you know, I think there's public speaking opportunities, there's network development, and I think it could really serve as a great next step opportunity for these young people.
Yeah, the opportunity to get that, you know, communication training and make, you know, persuasive arguments or persuade people to see different perspectives is a great skill. So I'm just looking at the chat and I see, you know, a lot of people are just commenting on how important this is, what a great experience it is for both locations, that the students are working with their communities, and it's not just presenting kind of facts and figures in a kind of dry, disconnected way, but it's actually working on issues that are important to them and directly affect their neighborhoods, and then also being with, you know, working on issues directly in their community. So why don't we turn to our Q&A from the audience. Got a couple questions. So for the first one I have for the students, this comes from Smithsonian Affiliations. How has your involvement in these programs influenced how you're thinking about your future, your education, and career opportunities? Who wants to take first stab at that one? Why don't we go with Naomi? How would you try to answer that one first? How has your experiences influenced the thought about your future education and career?
So about my future, so I'm going off to college, and then after college, you know, after every college student, looks for a house to live in and what type of place you want to live in for the, the rest of their lives. As for me, I'm trying to debate whether I would want to stay near the coast because there's going to be a lot of sea level rise due to, climate change. So that's affecting how I'm thinking about where I'm going to live in the future. And as for education, I'm looking to be more involved in clubs in college, environmental clubs in college, so that I could still pursue environmental awareness and spread it while I'm still, out of high school.
Amina, what about you? What are your thoughts based on your experiences? You've had 5 years now, it sounds like, in either Compass and Trees and more opportunities coming ahead. What are your thoughts about how this has shaped your experience and outlook and future?
My outlook would be that through my experience in this program, I started off not knowing much about the environment. I had like a briefing of it to like understanding and being able to like inform my family and live in a way that's environmentally cautious, because sometimes it can kind of be expensive or you don't really know how to go about it. But in my future, I really do plan to live fully environmentally cautious and to be to have not a lot of carbon footprint. And I want to stay where I am in Lowell, but also maybe go to where my parents are from, which is Sierra Leone. And I want to probably live there and try to give back to the community over there to see how I can improve from my origin. And for my education, I would like to go to college and study environmental engineering. And I can use what I learned there to implement it in my community in the future. And yeah.
That is a great answer, very thoughtful answer, and I'm sure you would be you'll be an awesome mentor for the young people who are coming up to this program. It sounds like you've had really great experience and gotten a lot out of it. That's exactly, I think, the outcomes we want.
Yeah.
And Chris, what about you? What are you thinking about for your future, and how has your experiences kind of influenced your thoughts on what you're going to do after you graduate?
Hello. Yeah. From my experience in the program, I'm not gonna lie. Going into high school, I was a very lazy kid. Like, I knew I was capable of a lot, but I didn't really have the motivation to get up and do something. But joining the program, they really get on they really get on top of you, and they don't really stop bothering you. So yeah, I enjoyed that. They really gave me a sense of family again. So I felt like if I did try and I did fail, I did have people to back me up and tell me to stand up and do it again, try again. But yeah, I enjoyed that. And for my future, I'm going to college. I'm more interested in forensics. So I'm trying to be a crime scene investigator. But really, my main goal in life is create a platform where people would come and tell me their ideas to help their community, and I would help fund them, kind of like Shark Tank in a way.
Right.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. That's wonderful to hear that. I know my own son complains a lot about me getting on his case, but in the end, hopefully he'll appreciate it as well. But these are all wonderful examples and testimonials about how great these programs have been and how effective that they are. And so it's great to know that you're able to serve so many young people so positively. We got another question coming through here from the audience. It's for Chris, and it says, climate gentrification is a real issue. So what could be a solution? How can we find a way for people to safely move from the coast while not overlooking low-income communities or rebranding them to be more expensive? You want to take a shot at that?
Yeah. So to answer that, I think the answer is really the people in the communities, because the people who are building the high-end apartments, who want to bring people a little bit more in, a lot of people, they look at them and think they're bad they're bad guys. I don't really think that's the case. I think you just gotta expect them to be who they are. Like they're profit-minded, profit-driven. So they don't have a responsibility to care about the people who are already there, the low-income families. So I think the solution should be to really just get on their laws, right? Government officials, stuff like that, because it's fine to come in, build new housing for everybody. It's not okay if you're just excluding the low-income families who were there to begin with. That's it.
No, that's great. That's a great answer. That's definitely the solution. I think that your perspective on understanding both sides is really important, right? If you're going to be effective, you got to know, see it from all the different sides so that you can come up with a solution that is a compromise that works. So we've got a question, a hand raised from Kevin. So I think Jen, would you want to open that up so Kevin can ask that question? Will he be unmuted? Will he ask directly? Is that? Yeah. Kevin, are you still with us? Or if you have your mic muted, if you can just check that. Okay. Well, we can try to get back to him. Right? Yeah, I'm not hearing him right now. So we're getting close to the end, and I wanted to make sure that we give everybody an opportunity to, kind of close out with some thoughts that you might have about, anything we discussed and just in general about the program and these kind of opportunities for young people and why they're important. Somebody want to start with that? Katie, do you want to start with some closing comments?
Sure thing. I wanted to start by just really giving my full support and gratitude for the youth that are participating today and for their enthusiasm and spirit and knowledge of really deep issues that they're handling with such maturity and positivity. As a Lowellian myself, I've lived in Lowell my whole life. And by being a part of the Lowell Parks and Conservation Trust and the partnership with Mass Audubon Drumlin Farm and the National Park, it's been really influential for me to be able to build community through conservation, like our mission states. And these tree students, they're so driven to make a change. They host their own conference every year, and they're so driven, and it drives me to make a difference as well. So I just wanted to close out by saying that it's so great to see the enthusiasm from all ages on this panel and the audience participation, and it gives me a lot of earth optimism for sure.
And it does me as well. I find this really inspiring, all these programs and what we're hearing from the young people and how much it's been a positive experience. Mauricia, do you have any closing comments, any last things that you'd like to share with us?
Yes, I do. So as an educator, or as I guess an adult, I hear all the time from people just how apathetic this rising generation is, how they don't know what the real issues are. And I have the fortune and the opportunity to work with young people every day. And I know for a fact that that's not the case. They really care, and they really are motivated to make the world that they're inheriting a better place. And Chris, Naomi are just two examples. Amina, you're another really amazing example of that. And I'm very excited for what the future holds for them.
That's great. It looks like we've got a couple more questions coming in here too. So we want to just we got enough time, I think, to handle a couple more. If anybody had their hand raised, use the hand raise option in Zoom. Can you unmute your mic and go ahead and announce who you are, give your name and where you're from, and go ahead and pose the question? I think we have Question from Donatella.
Hi, my name is Donatella. I'm from Miami, Florida. So I wanted to ask my question about the coral reefs and their health. In your opinion, do you believe that these quarantines will help save a lot of these reefs? And if not, what could help?
Good question.
So I feel as if the quarantine can help save a lot of these reefs because, as we've seen, because we're in quarantine and we're in our house, our carbon footprint is not as much as before. So the decrease in carbon dioxide is helping the reefs. And what can we do to help more? We could always spread the word. Social media, because we're quarantined, we're on our social media more. So while we're in quarantine, we could post on flyers through our phones to spread the word. Or we could always try and volunteer and contact our local coral reef restoration research site and always find ways to get involved.
That's great. That's important. Yeah, we still have, even though we're sheltering in place, we can communicate widely about a lot of different issues and keep that conversation going. And then anybody else out there who had their hand raised want to go ahead and unmute and ask her a question? Just announce who you are, state your name. Well, if you're having technical difficulties and you get that straightened out, just go ahead and pop in. That's fine. Michele, did you want to give us some closing remarks?
Sure. Yeah. I think this conversation and this affiliation with the Smithsonian and the connections that we've, Katie and I have started to make with our partners, and I think it's shown me that we just need to set up the scaffolding and put some pieces in place. But I think from what I've learned with working with the trees group so far, they can really take an idea and run with it. So I think that's really inspirational, and it gives me a lot of hope that, we're going to put forth a project and this summer work towards implementing it. And I think it's going to be very successful with all the folks that are involved. And I think our young people are really motivated and really realize, the impact that they can have on the community. So yeah, it just gives a lot of inspiration and hope for the environmental future.
And it's great to know that these are all teen-led too, that there's so much teen initiative that happens that you guys are able to facilitate. It's just so empowering. I love that. And speaking from the Smithsonian too, we're, super proud to be partners with you all and be, somehow affiliated with what the great work you're doing. There's a question coming through from Donatella again. I'll pose this to Sophie. How would somebody join Impact? And then also, could you tell us, any closing comments you have? You're muted, Sophie.
There we go. Hi, Donatella. So honestly, we can make our contact information, I think it's in the slide available here, but just reach out to us. We'll make our contact information available and you can come join in. We typically recruit post 8th grade, so after 8th grade when you're a rising 9th grader, but we do recruit other grade levels too. So whether you're in 10th, 11th, or 12th, you still have the opportunity to come in and join and still participate, be a part of our summer program, and just get involved with us. So I will definitely make sure to get my contact information to you. As far as closing remarks, I will piggybacking on everyone. I'm really grateful for this opportunity that we've had to collaborate with the Smithsonian and Smithsonian affiliates. I think science communication with our youth is so important, and we really are seeing that optimism. We're really seeing that hopefulness, and as someone like a scientist and a mentor, I am really excited to pass that baton and see them move forward. I also think the panels like this and these connections that we're making are so important because climate change, even though we work on it here locally, is obviously a global issue, and it's an interconnected issue, and it's not just limited to environmental issues. There are social issues, public health concerns. All of that is interconnected, and the more we work on creating these connections with other affiliates, people in other regions, the more we can bounce off ideas and new innovative ways to kind of address these issues. So it's really great opportunity, and really grateful for everything that you guys have done to put us together.
Yeah, and we're, you know, this is a great conversation that we've been having, and I totally agree with your perspective and the fact that there's so many issues, it needs to be integrated. The solution's got to be holistic, and so the way that you all are dealing with that and connecting with the communities is perfect. So let's hear quickly from the students before we go. Like to, especially if you've got messages that you want to share with your generation or anybody really. Naomi, you want to go start us off with your closing comments?
Sure. So what I like to say is that you could always get involved. With me, I have the benefit of living in Miami, which is near the coast. So there's a lot of environmental opportunities for me to get involved in. But say if you don't live in an area where there's not as much environmental opportunities, then be that headstrong and head started and make the environmental changes and make the environmental groups and just start it, be the pioneer.
That's great. Thanks. What about you, Chris? What do you want to say before we have to sign off?
If you really want to make a change, just be patient, because you're going to have to deal with like hard-headed people all the time. So, you know, and I do have one thing. I wanted to apologize when you asked me the question about thermal expansion. I had words and then I didn't have words. So
that's okay.
Yeah. But I know it. Oh.
Well, I'll just tell people that they should be looking out for the video, Climate 301, right? And so yeah. Can you find that on the website? Can they link to that through your website?
I'm sure they can. I have to make sure because I don't run the website, so I have to see. But if they want, they could message me in the chat and I could send a link.
Okay. Yeah, so keep an eye on the chat and we'll follow up with some information about where you can see this great movie and other movies and other videos that they've made. So let's see. Amina, do you want to give us your closing remarks? Any message you want to share with our audience and everybody out there? It's a global audience.
Yeah, sure. I just want to say thank you for this opportunity too. And thank you to Katie, Michelle, Sally, everybody that helped me come all the way here, and some support and all that. And with all this that's going on now, like it's really stressful and it can seem like a bad thing, but also like some good comes out of the bad. And I think that with this, it just really helped me like realize like, you know, we can all do better. And I think that if you have that in the back of your mind, you can do pretty much whatever you want to do if you always try to seek improvement. So yeah, this is, I'm sorry, I'm blanking out, but I'm thankful for this experience, and I'm really optimistic about the future, and I want to help in that. So yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I think that's a great call to action. You know, we have to work on improving our environment, but work on improving ourselves too, because those two things, you know, the most effective change maker is someone who is taking good care of themselves and understanding, you know, that how effective they can be. So I just want to say, you know, I really appreciate everybody being part of this. I've really enjoyed this panel. It was very inspiring to me. This is exactly what Earth Optimism is about. It's about, you know, helping each other to be the change agents and to have the greatest impact and to build a community that's going to keep moving forward. We heard about fantastic programs in Miami, Lowell, training and empowering young people on community work, you know, greening schools, coral reefs, climate gentrification, filmmaking, communications. It's wonderful, and keeping them in connection with people so that they, you know, can really be a more powerful force. I want to thank everybody for participating and for the great work, and thank our audience for joining us. And please continue to tune in to Earth Optimism TV for the remainder of our programming today. You can watch on our website. You can see it on Facebook Live. It's also going to be on Twitter. And for those of you who are on Twitter, you can join the conversation, hashtag Earth Optimism. You can continue to, you know, send your comments about this deep dive and about other programming that you're watching. There'll be a lot more stories highlighted across sectors in conservation and sustainability on success and solutions from many different people, many different organizations. So it's really a great collection of inspiring stories that hopefully will generate even more action. If you missed anything, much of the programming will be replayed this weekend, so just kind of tune in again. And thanks everyone for joining us, and happy Earth Week.